And let the games begin. The bracket is set for the NFL's postseason tournament. We're going to break it all down for you tonight on the Pregame PowerUp. We'll talk about the significant games that may impact how this thing shapes out. Plus, we'll go through all the coaching changes that did or didn't happen or still may yet happen. We've got it all for you on the Pregame PowerUp, and it starts right now. Let's go! Well, with all apologies to the holiday season that we just got through, this is the most wonderful time of the year. The NFL playoff is here, and we are ready for it to unfold and think about all the things that may happen. Glad you're with us on this special Pregame Power Playoff Preview Edition. That's not easy to say.
That's pretty good.
I had to navigate that very carefully. Trey Wingo here with Claudia. Bellafotto. We will be joined by Emerson Lazia. Marshall Newhouse will join us. Mike Pritchard will join us from the trading desk floor in Las Vegas. There are a lot of things to get to here, and I got to give the NFL credit. They know how to schedule this stuff, right? It seems like every year the last game of the regular season is the one that with the most on the line, and we certainly saw that play out again Sunday night between the Minnesota Vikings and the Detroit Lions, with the Lions doing what they had to do.
Yeah, and I was in Detroit, and at the end of the game, I said, what happened here? And all the fans, you know, it was a rambunctious group. I think the right team won that game. It's going to be a great playoff. Looking at the numbers now, what you want to do with the betting market is, of course, get ahead of the number if you can. So you see a line like Chargers-Texans. That's at 2.5. So if you like the Texans, you think you'll get the 3, maybe wait it out. If you like the Chargers, you bet the Chargers now. We'll talk about it on all of these preview shows. I do want to point out one game that's seeing a ton of action, 8 times more than any other game.
Oh, 8 times more than any other game.
8 times more of the action than any game. Try me.
I'm going to go Eagles-Packers.
Okay, but you're cheating. So
correct.
I don't even know why I let him just do that.
I mean, I set it up for you, and you just let me take it.
But I couldn't remember if you were on the call. But it is weird when you think about Jalen Hurts dealing with the concussion, Christian Watson ruled out. There's a lot of injury concerns here. Jordan Love banged up. So interestingly enough, 8 times more of the action on that game than anywhere else.
Well,
She's going
to have to explain that a little bit later, because that is beyond my pay grade. I do not understand.
Crazy.
But this is what I do know. That win by the Detroit Lions was absolutely massive in terms of what they want to do. So as we continue here, the Lions made that statement in that 31-9 win over Minnesota, securing the #1 overall seed in the NFC and earning the first-round bye and home field advantage throughout the playoffs. It's the first time in Detroit's franchise history they'll be the NFC's top seed. Again, we've been seeding in the NFL's postseason since 1975. Their highest seed before this was the 2 seed in 1991 when they went 12-4 and lost in the NFC Championship game. And here's a look at just how big that game was last night. The Lions get that first round bye while the Vikings drop to the 5. #1 seeds have historically made the Super Bowl over 50% of the time and gone on to win it more than a quarter of the time. As for the 5 seed, those percentages drop significantly, with only 3% of the teams making it to the big game and just over 2% winning it all. So the Lions treated last night like a playoff game, and afterwards head coach Dan Campbell and company celebrated as if it was literally that.
You guys look like you remember who the you are! Yeah, that was awesome. That's a hell of a win, guys. All I can think about is, man, we've been forced in this stuff now. This has been 3 years in the making. Some of it 4. Like, that just doesn't happen. You got to work through it, grind through it, and go through the downs to get to the ups of where we're at. That was unbelievable, man. Division winners, back-to-back seasons, and the #1 seed. What we've done is not easy. It's not easy. But I'm telling you what, man, we've said it all along. We got a special group, man. And this has been coming a long time. That's a lot of hard work. And we are the #1 seed with a bye, gentlemen. Great job.
Hey, be proud of this. This is just step 1. This is just step 1. We're on it bigger and better now. Proud of you guys. Love you all. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Put that jello on.
Yeah, that hat had no chance of staying on Dan Campbell's head.
It didn't stand a
chance. It had
chance.
zero chance. He looked very jaunty that it was on the side. I really appreciated that. So here now we go. The chase for the Lombardi Trophy is on, and after last night's win, the Lions are the favorites to win it all. Here's a look at the odds to win it all in the DK Sportsbook. Just behind the Lions, no surprise, the Chiefs, the #1 seed in the AFC. Then the Ravens, Bills, and Eagles round out the top 5. By the way, I would be shocked if one of those 5 teams didn't actually win it all. The Vikings are 6th, and you have to imagine a win last night would have improved those odds dramatically. The Steelers, when they're riding that 4-game losing streak going into the postseason, no surprise, they have the longest odds at plus 9,000.
And of course, that market always fluctuating. I tend to agree with the top there. Let's take a look at these matchups. We have the 5-seed Vikings. They'll now have to travel halfway across the country to play the Rams. Minnesota will have at least an extra day, as this one is slated for Monday night. The Vikings had won 9 in a row before that final loss to Detroit. The last time they lost before that, a 30-20 defeat at the hands of these Rams back in Week 8, Trey.
That is correct. Now, the Eagles were locked into the 2 seed, rested everyone in Week 18. They now get a home date with the Green Bay Packers after the Packers lost more than just the game against the Bears in Week 18. Wideout Christian Watson reportedly suffered an ACL injury, will undergo further testings. He's been hurt almost all season in one thing or another. Jordan Love was also banged up at that game with a thumb that forced him out of the game, but he should be fine for the opening round. And then there's Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts, still in concussion protocol for the Eagles. So a lot to keep an eye on, Claudia, as the week progresses for both of these squads.
Not scaring bettors away, though. All the money's coming in on that game. And then to the Bucks. They secured the NFC South in a playoff berth with a win over the Saints in Week 18, and that set them up to host the Commanders on Sunday. This is another rematch of a Week 1 game where Baker's Bucks routed Jaden Daniels. That was his first NFL start, 37-20, but these two teams are very different now. This, though, still highest total of the wild card slate, sitting at 50 and the hook right now, Trey.
Yeah, so here's a look at all the lines for the NFC on wild card weekend. Eagles and Bucks favored as the home team, but the Rams are a home dog against the 14-win Vikings. But keep in mind, the Vikings went to LA earlier this year and lost the second of those 2 back-to-back games to fall to 5-2 on the season. Only one new team in the fray from the NFC from last season, and that's the Commanders, with Dan Quinn doing a great job and Jaden Daniels obviously doing what he's been doing as a rookie quarterback. The Lions will now rest up in the divisional round, where they will take on the lowest seed to make it through wild card weekend. And just a little shout out here historically to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You know, they had a bunch of injuries. They started 4-6. This is the second straight year they've started 4-6 and went on to make the postseason. That had never happened before in NFL history. So kudos to the Bucs for winning this thing 4 straight years. So that's the situation in the NFC. Let's take a look at the AFC, where, of course, we knew who the #1 seed was going to be since Christmas. But the big news on this past week of the regular season was what Denver did. The Broncos punched their ticket to the playoffs with a Week 18 shutout of basically KC's JV squad. And for that, they get a date with the 2 seed up in Buffalo Sunday afternoon. The Bills are 4-1 in the wild card round with Josh Allen and Sean McDermott, but have lost into the divisional round 3 straight years, twice to the Kansas City Chiefs. The good news for them, they won't see the Chiefs until the AFC Championship game if both of them make it that far, Claudia.
And on Saturday night is the AFC North matchup between the Ravens and the Steelers. This is the biggest spread of the round, with Baltimore a 9.5-point favorite at home. We've seen the Ravens lay a lot of big spreads this season. These two teams split their season series, but the Ravens entered the wild card round on a 4-game winning streak, while Pittsburgh dropped all of their final 4 games.
Yeah, they are literally limping into the playoffs. Chargers and Texans take your Saturday afternoon spot. No surprise, that's where Houston always goes. Both teams won their Week 18 matchups. The Chargers ended their season with 3 straight wins, while the Texans dropped 2 of their last 3. LA is back in the playoffs for the first time in 2 seasons. It'll be Justin Herbert's second trip to the postseason in his career. He lost his only playoff game to the Jags back in 2022 when they were up 27-0. You might recall that play.
Yeah. Here's a look at the lines in the AFC. Bills and Ravens, heavy favorites at home, but odds makers at the DraftKings Sportsbook have the Chargers favored by a field goal over the Texans on the road. The Chiefs have 23 or 24 days off before taking on the lowest seed to make it through to the divisional round. And I know college and NFL is very different, but looked at what happened in college football. All the teams with those first round byes go 0-7.
Here's why I don't think that's going to be a problem. Andy Reid's teams in his NFL career, including the playoffs after a bye, 29-5.
He gets them ready.
That is by far the best record in the history of the NFL. For more on all of this, let's bring in our big man. Spent 11 years in the league playing offensive line. You know him, love him, Marshall Newhouse. Marshall, the Vikings' road got so much tougher with that loss, and they weren't really even in that game. Sam Darnold, not his best game, let's just be honest about it, especially when they got inside the red zone. He thought a couple of things that just flew up high. What do you make about what we saw out of Minnesota, and are you concerned because they've already lost once to the Rams, as I said, earlier this season?
Yeah, I'm a little concerned. Listen, Sam Darnold had a not great game. I think all year, as he's been playing exceptionally well, we've wondered, all right, when will this game come? Would it come? And could it be something that, faults Minnesota getting in the playoffs? But I think it's a bigger issue right now. This offensive line has not played well. Of course, me make it about the offensive line. But ever since they lost Darrisaw, I really, we cringed a little bit. He was that good of a left tackle and that much of a difference maker. And they filled in with Cam Irving. But this game against the Lions, they abused this offensive line. They ran stunts. They pressured Sam Darnold on 42% of the snaps. And he just never looked comfortable. There were throws to be made. There were explosives to Hawkinson, the touchdown to Justin Jefferson, but he just never got comfortable. And all credit to Aaron Glenn. I mean, he's been getting all this accolade. I think he deserves even more for doing what he's done with the injuries on this defense. They got Alex Anzalone back, but the game he called last night was just incredible. So I have issues with the offensive line for Minnesota. I think they just kind of need to focus on the run a little bit more. I think they kind of abandoned it against Detroit. Detroit probably forced them out of it with the score, the way the game was shaping up. But I think, the offensive line would like to lean on the run a little more, which opens things up, get some pressure off of them.
And that game showed us what the Lions can do on both sides of the ball when healthy. It's going to be scary in the postseason. Let's talk about this Packers and Eagles game. And I said it off the top of the show, sort of strange to see all of the action coming in at the DraftKings Sportsbook in this game when they're likely without Christian Watson. The Packers are, who got hurt in Week 18. Jordan Love is banged up. The Eagles a bit banged up as well. Jalen Hurts dealing with a concussion. But the Eagles defense, the Eagles team overall, I think, I call them sort of a sneaky 14-win team. We weren't really talking about them all that much, but they're one of the best defenses in the NFL. When healthy, one of the best offensive rosters. How much trouble do you see this Eagles team giving a hurt and banged up Packers offense?
I think there's going to be a significant amount of trouble for Green Bay. It's unfortunate because they've had such a great season, but their record against winning teams, now playoff teams, is abysmal. They've already lost to this Philadelphia team, but you can almost throw that out. It was in Brazil. Jordan Love got hurt. We didn't know what that looked like. And teams are so different from beginning of the season until now. But also the teams in their division, they haven't beat Minnesota or Detroit. They've just struggled against the best in the league. You add on top of that Jair Alexander, your best cover corner. Christian Watson, a deep threat for the wide receiver. And then Jordan Love injuring his elbow. Listen, there's going to be, whether it was in Green Bay or Philly, they're going to be in a cold environment. And an elbow injury is finicky in its own right, especially for a quarterback. In the cold weather, you just have no idea how that's going to play. And they just haven't been playing well. This game against Chicago, I think they should have won handily. And between Matt LaFleur and the execution of the offense, they kind of let Chicago win for the first time in a long time, which was disappointing. They're just coming into the playoffs. Instead of peaking, playing your best football, they kind of put some stinkers out on film, and they're not playing their best. So I'm worried about Green Bay.
Yeah, the Bears snapped an 11-game losing streak to the Green Bay Packers with that kick to win the game. All right, about 30 seconds are left. We got this one here, Marshall. Bettors are expecting a lot of points between the Commanders and the Bucs. The Bucs, I just love how feisty they've been all season. What do you expect in this matchup?
I expect a lot of points. Listen, the Bucs have played well. The last 7 games are 6-1, but all 7 of those games against the bottom 10 defenses in the league. And so, opposing offenses in the league. Right. The Commanders are the 4th offense in the league. And so Baker's going to have to play a Baker style of game, which is taking risks, but also scoring a lot of points to keep up with a very feisty Dan Quinn-led and Jayden Daniels-led Washington Commanders team.
And by the way, shout out to Baker and the Bucs for getting Mike Evans that 5-yard reception
Absolutely.
that he needed at the end of the game. 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons, tying Jerry Rice for the most consecutive all time. And more importantly, hitting that $3 million incentive clause in his contract.
Love it. You
Love to see that. You love to see coaches and players take care of each other like that. All right, Marshall, thanks. We'll get back to you in just a little bit. Lots more coming here on the Pregame Power-Up. Bo and the Broncos snapped an 8-year playoff drought and exceeded everyone's expectations from the start of the season. But now they run into Buffalo that has the MVP favorite in Josh Allen and the Bills. We'll take a closer look at that one when we continue on the Pregame Power-Up playoff preview style. Still hard to say. We continue on the Pregame Power-Up. The Broncos secured their spot in the postseason by beating a team that was supposedly the Chiefs, 38-0. 4 touchdowns from Bo Nix. Denver returns to the postseason for the first time since winning it all in Super Bowl 50. By the way, that 8-year playoff drought following a Super Bowl, the longest in NFL history, Super Bowl win. And it's the longest postseason drought ever snapped by a team with a rookie at quarterback. Now, this Denver team was a major surprise for the odds makers, who set their preseason win total at just 5.5 games. They were plus 20,000 to win the Super Bowl, plus 12,000 to win the AFC, and plus 600 to make the playoffs. Right now, they're up to 5,500 to win it all, the 12th best odds among the playoff teams, of which there are 14. And though they may have shocked the sportsbook and their fans with their success this season, they didn't shock themselves.
We have a really good team. We have a lot of guys that are, all competitive, all work hard. They're, close-knit. We got a lot of good relationships on this team. You can really feel and, watch the love for one another that we got. Then we go out there and play for each other, play for the guy next to us. There's not a lot of prima donnas on our team, not a lot of, issue makers. And we just, we all have one goal, and that's to go out there and win for our team. And, it's funny, we kind of doubled what a lot of people thought we were going to win. So it goes to show that, there's a lot of talk preseason, but you don't have to be what people say you're going to be.
I never wavered. It's so funny. hearing all the things of, the Broncos are going to win 4 games and 3 games and 2 games and this and that, got a rookie quarterback, blah, blah. And I'm like, man, they had no idea what we had in this locker room and what we have in this locker room and the type of player that Bo is. Bo isn't your, average rookie. He comes into, like I said, comes into work like a veteran. You would, if no one knew that Bo was a rookie this year and you just saw how he worked and saw how he played on the field, no one would say, oh, yeah, that's a rookie.
That's because he spent 17 years in college. I'm kidding, but he did have more starts in college football than anybody else in the 60s, by the way. But he's played great. So Jaden Daniels looked like he has the Rookie of the Year award locked up. But when you look at the numbers from Bo Nix, certainly you can make a case for himself, especially after what he did week 18. Again, we get it. The Chiefs weren't necessarily going all out to win the game. They have other things that they're more concerned with. But Nix threw for more yards and more touchdowns than Daniels this season. He also totaled 33 touchdowns, the 3rd most by a rookie in NFL history, behind only Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson. Daniels is 4th on the list with 31, and of course Daniels set the rookie record for rushing yards with 891.
Well, they both have the same case when it comes to the postseason. It's going to be an uphill battle. Let's take a look at the numbers when it comes to first-timers, those rookie quarterbacks in the postseason. Overall, not great. 12-19 straight up since 1990. A little bit better when we're talking against the spread. 7-1 in the wild card round since 2013. But then we go back to the bad. 19-38 straight up in the first start against a quarterback with playoff experience since 2013. Nope, that is 2002. So that's a long time. And that's what we're going to see in these situations. We have Bo Nix, the tall task, going up against Josh Allen and his playoff experience on Wild Card Weekend. Josh Allen has a 4-1 record on Wild Card Weekend as the Bills have won 5 straight division titles. He got the start yesterday, but only played 1 snap to secure his 115th straight start. That's the longest active streak in the NFL. Now, we know he dominates in the wild card round, but it's the next few rounds that he needs to get over the hump in.
Bingo.
Let's take a look at the numbers. Wild card round, 4 wins and 1 loss, but just 2-3 against the spread, just 1-3 in the divisional rounds, and the loss to the Chiefs in the 2020 AFC Championship game. And the stats across the 5 wildcard games, 15 total touchdowns and just 2 interceptions, but a clear drop-off between the two, Trey.
Yeah, and then there's Joe Burrow and the Bengals. They were one of the teams to send Josh Allen home in recent years when they had that game up in the snow. And this season, the Bengals were left out of the playoffs for the 2nd time in the last 2 seasons because of the Broncos' blowout win over Kansas City. Burrow finishes the season leading the NFL in both passing touchdowns with 43 and passing yards with just under 5,000. But his team's lack of success will likely keep him from earning MVP honors. But should it? Look, Lamar Jackson is firmly in the conversation. He racked up another 2 passing touchdowns in the Ravens' 35-10 beatdown of the Browns to give him a big number there. It was his 6th straight game with multiple passing touchdowns, and now it's tied for the NFL with 45 total touchdowns. His 217 yards put him over 4,000 for the season, blowing away his career high last year by almost 500 yards. So this is really interesting when you look at these numbers. Okay, just look at the numbers between Burrow and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. Josh, of all the 3 quarterbacks here, has the fewest total touchdowns. Odds favor Josh, but let's look at the differences here. I mean, Burrow hit almost 5,000, Lamar over 900 yards on the ground, both of them 45 total touchdowns. Allen doesn't lead in any of these categories, but has been the odds-on favorite to win the MVP since beating the Chiefs in Week 11. We're not saying he shouldn't win. It's just when you look at the numbers, it's kind of weird that it seems so clear-cut.
But it's not a stat award. It's the most valuable player, and which team has the best record of those 3 teams with the least around him.
Josh is everything in Buffalo. There's no question about it. But if Joe Burrow wasn't on them, they would have a 3-14 record in Cincinnati. So we can do that too. So Lamar Jackson had Zay Flowers to throw to all season. He became the Ravens' first Pro Bowl wideout in franchise history. It's a different passing offense without him, and a sprained knee on Saturday night leaves his status uncertain for this weekend. John Harbaugh said this morning that it's not season-ending, but it will be considered day-to-day. And when you hear a coach say it's not season-ending and it's day-to-day, basically, Claudia, what they're saying is they're just hopeful at some point they'll have him available whenever they can get him back if they're playing that deep into the postseason.
Yeah, and I mean, you do need him. I know that they brought in Derrick Henry, and that's why Lamar Jackson has flourished as he has, but they have the 3rd highest rush rate right now. As we all know, you take away one part of the game, it makes it a lot more difficult. Rashad Bateman's going to be your #1 guy, and they do have Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, maybe some 2 tight end packages. We'll see, but how far can that get?
Playing a lot better down the stretch of the season. He absolutely
But again, injury-ridden,
Correct.
age is an issue, so we'll see. But certainly they're hoping to get Zay Flowers back.
I'm certainly never one to have age issues with anybody. I just want to be clear. But continue.
Betting splits, shall we?
Sure.
Early wild card weekend, that is, of course. This is going to be changing. As of right now, Chargers to cover. Seen a lot of the money and the bets. 88% of the handle on Broncos Bills over, and then a decent amount of the bets in the handle on the Ravens money line as well. For more on the early action at the DraftKings Sportsbook, here's our anonymous sportsbook informant, Captain Book.
Ding dong, the Bengals are out and all is well in the desert. Time to kick the fires and light the tires. So far, big bettors are loving the favorite at home versus the pack and are chopping the tree up on little Nicky's team. 5-figure floppies on the money line and the spread are telling the captain that both lines could be moving higher unless Jalen is truly too hurt to start on Sunday. And in the AFC, the wise guys are already all over Jimmy's LA Chargers, firing away 6-figure slappies on the money line and hammering the Hollywood squad on the spread. As for this tasty total action, it's about the trilogy going down in Crabtown. Baltimore's favored, and sharp bettors are feeling the Steelers straight up, but the big money's been betting this one under the total, taking this game down a full 3 points since it opened. And it may keep falling. It may be win or go home on the field, but remember, the action never stops at the book, even when the game kicks off. It's playoff time, baby. Let's go!
I'm a little disappointed. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
Like, Captain Book has, through this entire thing, been giving us these wonderful themes and all these little drops of wisdom. And for the playoffs, he brought nothing.
Too many games, I think. He was overwhelmed. It's okay, Captain Book.
Book, step it up. It's the postseason. Just want to throw that out there. All right, for more on these wild card games, let's head out to the Vegas floor where we find none other than our own Mike Pritchard. Mike, let's talk about these Broncos for a second. You know, a lot of people are like, oh my God, the Chiefs laid down so the Bengals won't make the postseason, so Denver will get in there. Well, I saw the Bengals team had to struggle against the Steelers team and barely went on the road thanks to just a horrible drive at the end of the game by Russell Wilson and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Are we sure we don't want the Broncos out of the playoffs? That defense, they led the league in sacks. They're going to be a tough out for anybody.
Yeah, they're dangerous because they're young too, Trey.
They don't know any better.
A team. They don't know any better. And then they got a Super Bowl winning head coach as well. So they believe wholeheartedly in Sean Payton. I look back at that game against Cincinnati. They had that game, really. Bo Nix, he misses Franklin in that situation where they could have probably tied the game and gotten to the playoffs that way. So even on the road against Cincinnati, they played very, very well. Just down the stretch, they just couldn't finish those games that they needed to finish in order to make things easier. But they get the job done at home. They get into the playoffs. And as we all know, it's an entirely different season once you get into the tournament.
It is, although some things remain the same, like a total when we talk about two teams in the AFC North, the Ravens, Steelers. Everybody wants to bet the under because it's usually a rock fight, and 8 of the last 9 matchups between the two did go under. Although, the one time it didn't was the last game out, and the Ravens put up 34 of the 51 points. That offense is flowing. We know the Steelers can get going, but they've slowed down in the second half of this season. How do you see this game going? Is it going to be much of the same or maybe a little bit different?
Yeah, you know, Claudia, I mean, I think for this game itself, it's one of those games in which it's your third time meeting your opponent. I'll go back to my own experience when we played the Saints 3 times as a wild card, and certainly when I was in Atlanta, we were able to get the job done on the road against the divisional winner, New Orleans Saints. The same situation for the Steelers. Now, the Steelers are limping because offensively, they're putrid. I mean, they've only scored, 15 points a game the last 4 games. And you think about their record down the stretch, too. Not very nice at all for the Steelers. No momentum at all. But I will rely on that defense. I will rely on that familiarity. I like the Steelers in a situation with all these points. Like I mentioned, it's the 3rd time around. You're so familiar with your opponent. You know what you have to do. You know exactly what they want to do. Can you execute well enough? And I think the Steelers can prepare well enough to at least get inside that number there.
All right, so let's move on to the game that kicks this off, Wild Card Weekend. And I think the Houston Texans should change their name to the Houstons play at 3:30 in the afternoon when it comes to Wild Card. That's where we always seem to put them. Have we lost Mike? All right, we'll try and get,
I think he
we'll
can't
try
hear
and get
us.
Mike IFB back and see if he can hear us. So if we can get that straightened away, well, we will get back to Mike as soon as we can get that taken care of. But we were talking about the Houston Texans here. And this is the 8th straight year. The 8th straight time, rather, that they kicked off
at 3:30,
which is really the NFL saying, we like you, but we don't really like you.
And I am curious, too, because this is one of the shorter lines. It is the shortest line right now at 2.5. The Texans catching 2.5. Do you think that really matters? And I'm curious what Mike would have to say for a team heading into it. Do they feel really comfortable in that spot? I'm sure it doesn't matter that much.
It doesn't, but like we're talking about two teams that are coming into this postseason in opposite directions with the way they finished up the postseason, the regular season. You know, the Chargers have been soaring, and then we have the issue with the Texans. They have completely been sputtering through the stretch of the season. Now, look, obviously, they've lost Tank Dell.
I was going to say the injuries.
They've lost Stephon Diggs. But the bigger issue, I think, as you get ready for the postseason, when you're going to be playing better defenses all season long, that offensive line has really struggled down the stretch of the season, and that's why we see the regression to the mean for C.J. Stroud at this point.
Yeah. And the Chargers offense wasn't really their calling card all season. They, out of nowhere, came up with one of the best defenses in the NFL. And as we know, there is a lot of talent on the Texans, but they're not going to get Diggs back. The rest of their receivers have been dealing with injuries. They've had injuries in the backfield. If that pops up again, that's going to be a tough defense to beat.
Then there's the issue with Kansas City, right? Because they won and wrapped up the home field on Christmas Day, we're talking 20-plus days before they get to it. And, you know, a lot of people have said, well, this. All I can tell you is this. I think the entire Chiefs season has been, can we just get here? They don't. 17 games in 18 weeks of the regular season. We're like, can we just get to the postseason? Can we just get to the playoffs? They're here. And yeah, you might not like them, what they did in the regular season. This is what they're built for. This is where they I don't expect there to be any problems with rust and rest with this team when they get set to play.
Well, they're a team that needs the rest, too.
Correct.
If
They're
we're
an older
talking
team.
about the injuries, an older team, Travis Kelce, if we want him to be the Travis Kelce of old in the postseason, we'll certainly have to catch his rest as well. And I admit it, okay? Whatever, give it to me. I know I doubted the Chiefs all the way up until this point. And this man right here, it's true. They just find ways to win, and I don't think there's any other team outside of the Lions. I really have high faith in the Lions. That is as convincing.
I didn't even have to say anything. Claudia, take us to break.
Bill Belichick. We're going to talk about him. He lasted 24 years in New England. Gerard Mayo, just one. The Pats will be looking for their third head coach in 3 years. And as for who else is on the chopping block, we'll break that down next.
Well, Gerard Mayo didn't even make it out of the stadium Sunday before he was fired. The Pats letting him know right after the game that it was over for the first-year head coach. Patriots beat the Bills in Week 18, and Gerard Mayo was fired about an hour after the final whistle. He's just the second Patriots head coach to go one and done, joining the immortal Rod Rust, who went 1-15 back in 1990. The Patriots finished 4-13, and that win dropped them out of the top spot in the NFL draft all the way down to 4th. The Titans will now be picking first overall after understanding the assignment and losing to the Texans in Week 18. Patriots will now be in search of their 16th head coach in franchise history and third in the last 3 years. So why just 1 year, and why do it so quickly? Here's what team owner Robert Kraft had to say about the change after meeting with the media today.
This whole situation is on me. I feel terrible for Gerard because I put him in an untenable situation. I know that he has all the tools as a head coach to be successful in this league. He just needed more time before taking the job. In the end, I'm a fan of this team first, and now I have to go out and find a coach who can get us back to the playoffs and hopefully championships.
So we'll see what happens there. Meanwhile, we know some people are staying. The Jags fired Doug Peterson early today after the team lost 18 of its last 23, but they hang on to GM Trent Baalke, which seems like a really weird decision. But in New York, both Brian Daboll and GM Joe Sheehan are safe for another season, which I think is the right thing to do because the ownership basically said, we don't care about wins and losses with what they did with Daniel Jones, so then you can't fire the head coach for not winning enough.
Right.
In Indy, Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard will be back, but the Bengals let go of their DC, Lou Anarumo, who will be out of a job for about 7 seconds.
Imagine if the Bengals had a good defense this season. Wow. Kevin O'Connell now preparing his team for the Rams in the wildcard round, but could he be available to fill any of these vacancies? Fox Sports' Jay Glazer reported yesterday that multiple teams have considered trying to trade for the Vikings head coach, as their 39-year-old will be in the final year of his deal in 2025. It's a fun thing to think about, but NBC reported during the game last night that Minnesota has no internal plays to entertain the offers, and that they, quote, love Kevin, and rightfully so, because O'Connell closed as the favorite at the DraftKings Sportsbook to win Coach of the Year this season. Minnesota entered the season with a win total set at 6.5, and they finished 14-3. They were the first team since the 2015 Panthers to finish at least 6.5 games over their preseason win total, Trey.
Yeah, and people might hear that and say, that's crazy. You can't trade for a coach. Well, yes, you can, and it's happened a lot. That's how Bill Parcells went from the Jets to the Patriots. That's how Bill Belichick went from the Jets to the Patriots. That's how Herm Edwards went from the Jets to the Kansas City Chiefs. That's how John Gruden got from the Raiders to the Bucs, and that's how Mike Holmgren also went from one team to the other. So it happens way more than people think.
Do you actually see him anywhere else?
No. Because the Vikings would be crazy.
And you would want to keep him, especially if you're going back to J.J. McCarthy and the quarterback situation.
That's the really interesting situation, is how they handle the quarterback situation, because Sam Darnold's on a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
And he's going to have so many suitors.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Yep. Everybody's going to want him. Let's talk about against the spread. Who made the money this season in terms of bettors? The best and the worst over the year. The best teams against the spread, Detroit, Denver, LA, all finishing 12-5. But Detroit takes the top spot, covering by an average of over 7 points this season. Minnesota and Philly round out the top 5. And people started to catch on and cashed in with the Lions. They were the second most bet team behind the Chiefs at the DraftKings Sportsbook this season. And in honor of last night's Golden Globes, Emerson Latzia decided to hold his own award show to recap the year in betting.
Welcome, everybody, to the Pregame PowerUp Award Show, where winners are winners even if they are losers. I'm Emerson Latzia. I'm your host tonight because no one else was available to record this. So we are going to be taking a look at tickets cashed and tickets crumpled, figuratively speaking, of course, because most of you do your betting on your phone. Our first category is Best Live Bet of the Year. And our nominees, the Commanders, before their Hail Mary versus the Bears, the second biggest heave of the year, behind Chicago puking down its leg the rest of the season. And the winner is the Maryland Miracle, baby. They were running unopposed, just like playing the Bears.
That's a memorable one that we'll remember for a long time. Congrats.
Appreciate you.
Up next, Best Supporting Dog. And no, we are not talking about Airbud, Lassie, or the Sassy Springers on Instagram. We are talking biggest win on the money line by an underdog. Dallas overcoming plus 455 odds to beat the Commanders on Thanksgiving. A rare bright spot inside Jerry World. Wait, never mind. Now to a guy who's left ... a blank space in everyone's parlays this year. Travis Kelce. Now this guy experienced a fall from greatness, not only in his dating life, but on the field as well. Settling for a mildly talented pop star, but not a lot of bets for the DraftKings community. But nonetheless, Travis is charmingly befuddled to accept this award.
You gotta fight for your right.
It's now time for the moment you've all been waiting for, our final category of the night, the Most Bet Player Award. The nominees are Saquon Barkley in every week but 18, Lamar Jackson in the best season to likely not win MVP, Josh Allen in Love with Haley Steinfeld, and turnover. Turnover?
Turn the paper over.
Oh, well, that makes sense. And King Henry in Remember, He Was a Titan. And the winner is King Henry, his first real award and chance of success as he is no longer playing in Tennessee. And accepting the award on behalf of Derrick Henry tonight is our very own Bailey Kennedy, who really needs this. He had a rough 2024, and 2025 is already off to a not-so-great start. So congratulations to you, congratulations to all of our winners, and everyone, have a great rest of your new year.
We're so proud of you, Bailey.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Emerson had my jacket on.
Yeah, he looked pretty good in it, too.
He looked better. That's why I'm mad. He looked better than I did. Frickin' Emerson.
Let's talk
All right,
about
I'm over it. I'm over it. Move on.
Straight cash homie. Which players made the most money at their position at DraftKings this season? Joey B, as I just said, if they had a defense, what they could have done, but he certainly led one of the hottest offenses towards the end of the season. Saquon Barkley up there, RB1, Derrick Henry, RB2. We got Chase, Lazard, and Njoku. Any of these surprise you up here? A.J. Brown, Broncos defense, Harrison Butker, polarizing figure?
Yeah. Well, Butker, is interesting because he missed a few games because of that meniscus.
I know. That's why I'm
a little surprised by that. And Njoku was a great play for me and my fantasy team. I can promise you that.
Me too.
There you go.
Nice.
But I'm really depressed that Emerson looks better in that jacket than I did. New Year's resolution: look better in jacket than Emerson. Check. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. All right, let's go back to.
Anyways.
Let's get rid of the silliness and let's go back to the serious stuff. You know him, you love him, Marshall Newhouse. Pride of the Stockyards in Fort Worth. Okay. Let's go through. It's always the Monday after the season is a dreaded one for coaches and staffs because so many people, get fired. But it hasn't been as many as we might have thought today because of the new rules where you can't really talk to some of these players that are or coaches that are on these playoff teams until after the divisional round. What surprises you the most about what did or didn't happen so far?
I think some teams holding pat, which we thought there'd be some shakeups. I mean, New York is one, and then Jacksonville going with the coach and not the GM, and then obviously Gerard Mayo and I think Robert Kraft recognizing both a mistake he made then and then a mistake he might be making now, and he's trying to fix it. So. But yeah, normally we've seen it's called Black Monday for a reason, which is unfortunate because these are real people with real lives, but a few less firings than we're used to. And I think people are understanding that the grass is not always greener, and giving a coach an extra year, while it might not look good in the short term from a media standpoint, is probably the best thing for your team.
See, as a Patriots fan, of course, I'm happy for any change after this season, but you have to look at the Mayo situation and ask yourself, as a management team, what did you think was going to happen? With the rookie quarterback, with no left tackle, with basically no offensive line, with the worst receiving room that the NFL has had in history in terms of production. How much was it really Mayo's fault? With all of that said, I saw him smirking on the sideline, Marshall. The Patriots beat the Bills. Maybe he got the news before. I'm kidding. A lot of people are saying this, though, and you know I put up a picture and I like this, Patriots, what are you doing? And you replied to that saying the call is coming from within the house. What does that mean, Marshall? What happened with this Pat squad?
Well, first of all, I want to go down the Claudia conspiracy hole. I want to see.
We don't have enough time on this show.
But listen, Robert Kraft later today mentioned it, and I definitely respect him taking ownership of that. He put Gerard Mayo in a position to fail, and that's really what it was. I think he had designated him his coach in waiting a few years ago when Bill Belichick was still there, but it's very obvious that he just was not ready. But multiple things can be true. Was he ready? No. He contradicted himself multiple times about decisions that were made, both personnel with the quarterback situation and in-game decisions. And then also, the cupboard was left bare, quote unquote. The offensive line was a mess all year. You cannot expect any quarterback, whether that's Drake May or Joe Milton or Jacoby Brissett, to succeed in that situation. And so I understand that, you want to move on. And then the last factor truly is, if they see something as far as the availability with Mike Vrabel, they're just trying to take their shot. That's what it feels like, the momentum gained to kind of move on from Gerard Mayo, despite it not being totally his fault. But a lot of things can be true. And this is a weird place for Patriots fans to be, Claudia. This level of perceived dysfunction, you guys aren't used to this. You're very, very spoiled. You should sit down and humble yourselves. And
Dang.
No, I'm just kidding. I was one of you. But I think if they go and get Mike Vrabel, it's a home run, and it'll all be worth it. But if you don't get him, assuming that's your number one guy in the clubhouse, I'm very much wondering where Robert Kraft and his family goes.
I was going to say, so you think the best plan of action is to try and go get Vrabel, and you have to wonder if they don't get him, what is the issue there? Because he has been vocal about wanting to return to New England when he entered the Hall of Fame for the Pats. So I think if they don't get him, there's a bigger problem there.
I think there's some truth to that. Maybe they get one of the Detroit coordinators, but him being the guy who he has said he wants to be there, and we assume they want him there because of the familiarity, makes the most sense. If something doesn't get done, then there's problems beneath that.
All right, stay in the AFC East here. Aaron Rodgers joined the 500 touchdown pass club, only the fifth quarterback to do it. Was that his last game of his NFL career?
Actually, no. Of his NFL career, no. Maybe with the Jets, we'll see.
But he said he doesn't want to go anywhere else, Marshall.
I understand that. That might not be up to him. And so maybe that spurs on, it's funny to think that a decision is now not up to him when he's had so much control, conceivably over this Jets organization. But listen, the last half of the season, despite them being a laughingstock and not looking like a competent team, he played okay football. And guess what? Okay football in the right situation can win you 10 games to get you in the playoffs. People cannot forget this, that there's only at any given time 15, 16, 17 legitimate quarterbacks in the NFL. There's a whole spectrum. Aaron Rodgers, given he's healthy, given that the situation feels better than the Jets situation has been this entire time, can still win you football games, as crazy as that sounds.
Yeah, it is, but there's so many other factors that you have to go into it, especially with the Jets. Then the question becomes, okay, who was willing to take on this experiment after seeing how it's played out the last two seasons in New York? And that's the bigger thing. Like you say, it may not be around. It may not be up to him. What did you just say?
Tennessee.
Maybe Tennessee.
Yeah. Well, they definitely need to move on from Mr. Mayo. There's no question about that. All right, Marshall, thanks. We'll check back with you on our next show coming up next weekend. Lots more to continue here on the playoff preview of the Pregame PowerUp. Still not easy to say. After a 4-score performance in Week 18, Jahmyr Gibbs finished with the league lead in scrimmage touchdowns, but did his ability to find pay dirt pay off for bettors this season? We'll break it down next. Stay with us.
the NFL regular season coming to an end, it's time to audit your performance as a bettor. And for us, that includes our next-gen kitty cat, who's been making picks for you all season. And in each primetime game, we've had the cat pick the first touchdown scorer, and it's time to hold him accountable. So let's see if the cat was profitable for you all this season. Overall, Next Gen Cat picked the first touchdown scorer for 27 primetime games throughout the season, and he ended up with a record of 4-23, which, yeah, that's
why I'm a dog
great.
person.
It's a first touchdown, and it's a cat. However, those 4 hits were big ones, so a $100 better on each of those cats, on each of the cat's picks would have netted out to $150 in profit. So technically, the cat made you money. The longest odds the cat hit on this season, Drake London at plus 850 in week 5. His most picked players were Breece Hall, Jamar Chase, and George Kittle.
Well, see, you can't bet Jets. That's the thing we're learning.
Yeah, come on,
don't
cat.
bet Jets. And we learned today that Claudia's hobby includes cat racing. That's okay, go ahead.
I love cats, it's cute. Last night, Jahmyr Gibbs had the first touchdown, the last touchdown, and every touchdown in between for a total of 4 against Minnesota. Gibbs became the first Lions player to lead the NFL in scrimmage touchdowns with 20, since Sanders had 17 in 91. It's also now the Lions' single-season franchise record. No other Lions running back had produced a 4-touchdown game since Sanders in 91, also against the Vikings. But did all of those touchdowns make bettors money this season? Let's take a look. The players bettors profited the most from this season for anytime touchdowns was actually Jamar Chase, who found the end zone 17 times. For first touchdown, it was James Cook, who did it 3 times for Buffalo. And bettors loved wagering on Derrick Henry to score this season, and he did a lot. 18 times to be exact, Trey.
That is a lot of information. But you know what we have?
More
information. Again, we produce this show so well in the nice tight 60 minutes that we have. We can't get everything in there that we need. So that's why we created a little thing we call the data dump to just let it all hang out at this point. The Broncos have been a nice story, but one trend should have fans worried for the postseason. Take out the Week 18 win over the Kansas City JV squad, and Denver went 1-7 with a minus 37-point differential against teams with winning records this season. Their outside of Week 18 came against clubs that combined to post a 48-88 record this season.
Well, the Ravens are one of the hottest teams entering the playoff this year. Coming off their Week 14 bye, Baltimore is 4-0 straight up and against the spread, with each win coming by at least 15 points. That includes a 17-point win at home against the Steelers. The Steelers, meanwhile, not only lost their last 4 regular season games, they also have lost each of their last 5 postseason games.
Yeah, there's going to be pressure on Mike Tomlin to turn that around. All right, there's a lot pointing to the under in the Eagles matchup with Green Bay. We told you the Packers are banged up and taking on one of the best defensive units in the NFL. The Eagles finished second with only the second best scoring defense behind the Chargers, and they've only given up more than 20 points at home twice this season. The under is hit in 5 of Philly's last 6 playoff games, with the only over coming in Super Bowl 57, where they were outscored by the Chiefs 38-35.
And let's talk about the dogs. Underdogs have been covering at a pretty high rate throughout the wild card round history. Since 2015, dogs are 27-17 against the spread in the opening round. Last season, dogs went 4-2 against the spread and 3-3 straight up. Underdogs at home have been the most profitable spot since the wild card format was introduced in 1978. They're 29-1 against the spread and 16-14 straight up, including 2-0 last year. This year, we have 2 home dogs in the Texans and the Rams.
Now, the Rams one is interesting because, again, we don't know what we're going to see from the Vikings after what we saw, and that raises the bar of curiosity, and they've already beaten them once.
You would assume a big bounce back.
That's what we're looking for.
You would assume a big bounce back.
So we'll see what happens there. Okay, hey, thanks for watching this playoff preview edition of the Pregame PowerUp. We will be back Sunday morning, 11 o'clock Eastern, to get you set for that day of wildcard action. And then, of course, back next Monday night in our regular slot. We hope to see you then. Thanks for being with us. Claudia races cats in her spare time.
Yeah, I do.
I mean, I've seen it.